Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the show where we're four high school friends. We get together once a month and we talk about our favorite movie that came out that month. This is the really exciting time of year. It's our November episode. Oscar season is picking up. All the art movies are coming out. It's just a really exciting time. So each of us has picked our favorite movie that has come out in the last month, and we're going to be basically selling it to each other and discussing it and talking about what we loved about it. And we've got some disagreements coming up, but basically it's just really exciting time for movies. So I just want to jump right in. We've got Shaun Bowlby in Seattle, Washington.
Hello.
We've got Brandon Bowlby in New York City.
How's it going?
And Derek Deal in Everett. Yo, guys, I know I usually do warm-up questions for each of you guys singularly because, you know, warm-ups are good. We like warming up. I don't know about you, but I think warming up is good. But this time I felt like we should just do them as a group. You know, I've got 4 questions here, each one sort of relating to the month of November. So, I think it might be more fun if we just all jumped right in with our answers. So, first of all, one movie that we're not going to review is Ford versus Ferrari, but I think some of us saw it. But best James Mangold film, Walk the Line or Logan?
Oh, Logan for me.
Logan?
No comparison, yeah.
It's been way too long since I've seen Walk the Line.
I haven't seen Walk the Line.
Oh,
Ever?
Logan.
it's good.
Ever.
Wow.
It's not Ford versus Ferrari. That's all.
It's not Ford versus Ferrari. Ford versus Ferrari is pretty good, but I'd go with Walk the Line personally.
Over Logan?
I mean, they're close. They're close. I'd probably have to The thing about Walk the Line is the Dewey Cox movie hurt Walk the Line. Like
Walk
it was
Hard.
Walk Hard was such a good parody that it hurt Walk the Line, but I don't know if that really hurts the movie if it's so good and then there's parody that's perfect.
You're right.
But still, I don't know. Brandon, you answer Walk the Line or Logan?
Logan.
Okay.
Logan's
Walk the Line
Yeah.
or Logan? Yeah. I thought it was Walk Hard or Logan.
Oh, yeah, no, James Mangold didn't
Walk
direct.
the Line.
Okay.
And definitely Logan.
Okay, cool. Well, you guys all say Logan's his best movie, and I think it's pretty close. Okay, so the Irishman question. Al Pacino or Robert De Niro? Not based on the Irishman, but their whole career.
I go with Robert De Niro only because I think I need to see more Al Pacino movies. I've really only seen like Heat and Godfather films. I can't think of much else that I've seen with him in it. But that's just my own problem.
Yeah, same with me. I haven't seen nearly as many Pacino movies as I have Robert De Niro, so I got to go Robert De Niro.
Yeah, I'll agree with that for the same reason, just off of not knowing any better.
He seems to have a more varied career as well. Like his best movies going from like boxing movie to, war films and he's kind of more all over the place. I feel like.
I just feel like you guys are missing some of Al Pacino's big 70s movies. Like,
I definitely am.
Sure.
Like Midnight Cowboy and
he's not in Midnight Cowboy.
Serpico.
Well,
what?
That's Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, yeah. Well, they look the same. So.
Well, basically the same person.
I was thinking like Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon. Yeah.
But
Angels in America miniseries.
I haven't even seen
Scent of a Woman.
Scarface.
Okay, so Bong Joon-ho, Snowpiercer or Okja?
Oh, Okja.
Fuck.
Oh, I love Okja so much.
Okja?
Yeah.
Was that your answer, Brandon? Okja?
Snowpiercer is my answer.
Snowpiercer. All right. I'd probably go Snowpiercer too.
I only saw Snowpiercer, and I didn't see Okja because it didn't look interesting to me at all.
Oh my god!
Ah, boo!
Now you'll go back. I'm sure.
Yeah, boo!
So,
You're in for a
Snowpiercer
treat
was
if
in
you
my
haven't
top
seen
10.
Get in the corner, Shaun. Just kidding. You don't need to get in the corner. Okay, last question, the Taika Waititi question. What we do in the shadows or Hunt for Wilder People?
What we do in the shadows?
Hunt for the Wilder People.
I haven't seen Hunt for Wilder People, so I gotta say what we did in the shadows.
Okay. I go
Thor
100%.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, Derek's like, Thor Ragnarok. Hunt for Wilder People for me, too. Okay, so that was our warm-up. Thanks for playing, guys. I just want to just lay out the
Look how
episode.
relevant those were, Nick. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to make them more relevant, and I think the group dynamic is a little more fun for this game. I think it's a fun game for us to play, the either or game, but I think we should do it as a group. So from now on, sweeping declaration, we're doing it as a group.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All
So
right.
I just want to lay out the episode really quick. We're going to do the first things first. Shaun is going to go over a movie project he's been working on, and then we have 3 featured reviews. We're going to talk about the new Taika Waititi movie, JoJo Rabbit. We're going to talk about the new Martin Scorsese movie, The Irishman, which is going to be on Netflix. And we're going to talk about the new Bong Joon-ho film, Parasite. And we're going to do a spoiler review of Parasite about halfway through. We'll give you plenty of spoiler warning. So that'll be the last review we talk about. And it will have spoilers at the end. So, Shaun, you have been in the middle of a movie project for a while.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us? And you just finished it. You're all done with your project. So, just like I did the horror movie month last month and broke it down for you guys, Shaun is going to break down his most recent movie project.
So I watched a bunch of westerns in the last year or so, over the last year or so, and I typically do it. So this is my first genre kind of anthology, or I don't know exactly what you would call it, but
Yeah, that works.
I typically do it by director or filmmaker. So I've done, I go through every Martin Scorsese movie, every Kurosawa movie, every Alfred Hitchcock movie. Sometimes it's abridged, sometimes it's everything they've done, and I always do it in chronological order. So I always watch those movies so I get a good sense of their careers or the development of the genre as a whole. And so, it's a lot of fun because you get to see how the genre develops and how it's changed over the years, and how you get to see it kind of not real time, but you get to see it progressively change, which is pretty cool. So I started with the first Western potentially ever made. And then I went all the way through to the Sisters Brothers that came out last year. So I guess I was just going to go over my list and talk about... I thought it'd be fun to give you kind of an overview of how the genre has changed. So I'll list off all of the movies that I watched in order, and I'll kind of break it down by decade or kind of period, and so you guys can kind of hear how it's changed.
How many in total did you do?
I only watched 30 movies.
Only.
Yeah.
30 movies.
Well, I mean, 30 movies compared to the 30 movies that Nick watched just for horror movie month.
Oh, right.
But
We have a different. We have a different viewing style. I don't know if we talked about this on camera or off camera last month, but like I feel like you are more deliberate and like precise with the movies that you watch. Whereas like I will just watch any sort of crap in any sort of circumstance.
You'll just turn on Hannibal Holocaust at 3 a.m. on your iPad.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll watch movies in pieces sometimes just because that's my life, and I'll watch bad movies just because I'm a completist. But like I feel like you're very like you're the kind of person that if you don't have 3 hours to sit down and watch a 3-hour long movie with the lights turned all the way down and you're focused 100% on it, you're not going to watch it. Am I wrong?
Yep.
Yeah.
You are correct. Unless it's a movie that I've seen before, or if I don't have enough time to finish the movie, I'll typically watch something else, like a TV show or something.
Totally.
But yeah, why don't we jump into it?
Jump in.
So the first movie I watched was The Great Train Robbery. Came out in 1903. And this is widely regarded as not only the first Western narrative ever made, it's also considered the first narrative film ever made. It is only 15 minutes long or so, and you can pretty easily Google the movie and just watch it. It's on in archives, and it's pretty easy to watch. It might even be on Netflix right now.
I'm watching it tonight.
It's kind of in the public domain, but it's like the first movie to invent reverse shot, and it's the first movie to shoot an insert or a close up of something, and it's the first movie to cut between two scenes that are happening simultaneously. And so there's a lot of pioneering techniques that this movie invented. It's kind of cool. But yeah, so that then in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, that was kind of the golden age of the Western. And there was a lot of the classic Western hero, the classic Western, good guy versus bad guy, fairly simple stories, and your manly man, and in the old frontier. And so I watched movies like Stagecoach, which was the movie that really launched John Ford and John Wayne into stardom. And it's kind of said that in a single shot, John Wayne was made a superstar in that movie.
Dude, that shot is for real.
Yeah, it's a memorable shot for sure, and it's but yeah, then I watched Red River, which came out in the 40s. And then Winchester 73, which came out in 1950. Winchester 73, which was a Jimmy Stewart movie. It's pretty cool. It's also one that stood out of these early movies. But then we get into the 50s, which in the 50s is when the Western genre kind of started to expand and start telling more interesting and complex stories, and with more interesting heroes and more interesting villains, and really started to explore the Western genre and what it can do with movies like High Noon and Shane and The Searchers and Rio Bravo. And I actually really recommend watching High Noon and Rio Bravo together if you ever get the chance, because Rio Bravo is Howard Hawks' film where he saw High Noon and he thought High Noon was a very anti-capitalist, anti-Western movie. And so he decided to essentially remake the movie as a pro-America, pro-capitalist, with a pro-capitalist message. And so he made Rio Bravo. But yeah, those two movies are really interesting.
There's Rio Bravo and High Noon, you said?
Yeah, Rio Bravo and High Noon.
Huh.
And Shane's that movie from the movie Logan, right?
Totally.
What's that?
Shane is in the movie Logan.
Shane is the movie. Yep,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, we were just talking about Logan. Wow. Pull it all back. Pull it back.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And then in the 60s, the Western genre really started to take a turn where it's it kind of developed what's called the revisionist Western, which really started showing the ugly side of the Old West, and started exploring the anti-hero and the violence, and really turning the genre on its head. And you can right off the bat see the influence of Akira Kurosawa on the Western genre. In 1960, The Magnificent Seven came out, which was an adaptation of Seven Samurai. And then The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and then the Dollars Trilogy with A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A Fistful of Dollars also being a Kurosawa adaptation, Western adaptation of Yojimbo. And then Once Upon a Time in the West, And then in 1969 is probably the best year for the Western genre, with 3 incredible movies coming out: True Grit, The Wild Bunch, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The 70s really started going off on what's called the anti-Western, where it kind of takes the feeling and the general setting and time period, but really flips the tropes on its head with McCabe and Miss Miller, which is a movie, a Western set in Washington State up in the mountains. So it goes for the snow and mountains rather than the desert landscapes. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid and the Outlaw Josie Wales were the other 70s movies. I skipped over the 80s. It didn't really seem like there were too many good Westerns that came out in the 80s, but in the 90s...
Not a lot going on.
Yeah, apparently. The early 90s, it kind of came back and really re-examined the Western genre and to kind of see what the genre is all about. I is kind of how I see it, as Dances with Wolves, Unforgiven, and Tombstone came out that in the early 90s. The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford came out in the 2000s, the aughts. It's the only one from the aughts that I saw. And then the teens were actually a really incredible decade. I was kind of surprised at how many good Westerns came out. True Grit in 2010, Django Unchained, Bone Tomahawk, The Revenant, Hostiles, and the Sisters Brothers. And that concludes my list, aside from some random movie called Meek's Crossing that Brandon won't stop going on about.
No, True West.
Oh, True West?
Slow West.
Slow West.
Oh, okay. Right.
I feel like you watched plenty, though. Don't let me derail you.
But yeah, so that's my list. So you guys have already seen it, but I'll just, for the audience, I'll go over my top 10. At number 10, I have Django Unchained, the Tarantino movie. At number 9, I have The Outlaw Josie Wales. 8, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. 7, Dances with Wolves. 6, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. 5, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. 4, For a Few Dollars More, the second movie in the Dollars trilogy. 3, The Revenant. 2, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the third in the Dollars trilogy. And then at number 1, The Unforgiven, the re-examination of the Western genre. So yeah, that's it.
Far out.
Pretty epic.
Dude, color me impressed. Love it, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I love how
That's
you
a pretty
broke
good
that.
project.
I love how you broke that down by the decades. I love how all the decades have like little sub names. You know, like man, anti-westerns. I just want to read more about that. You know, like that just sounds great. I wonder.
Yeah, that's what's so fun about it.
I can't help but wonder what was going on in the 80s. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the 80s, but like just for whatever reason, it was like, nah, we don't like westerns in the 80s right now. But
Yeah.
like I'm watching film noirs right now, and there was like a big rebirth of neo noir in the 80s, which is like kind of opposite of like westerns. But anyway, we don't need to talk about that. I wanted to, Shaun, real quick. I watched Unforgiven with you. And I was really excited about it because I saw it in high school, but I hadn't seen it since then. And everything that I heard and remembered about it, like I didn't really. I got this whole list of movies I saw in high school that I needed to rewatch, and that was like one of the top ones because like I remember thinking, if this is as good as I remember it being, it will undoubtedly be my favorite Western. And then we watched it, and I was just floored, and it lived up to all my expectations, and it is my favorite Western. I just love how Clint Eastwood, like, he came back, and it was like he was playing one of his old characters. Like, it could have been a story, it could have been a sequel from one of his old characters, but, like, you know, old and retired and not skilled anymore, and he's just trying to be peaceful, but he gets, you know, pulled back in for another mission. Unforgiven couldn't have been as good without the previous, without all the history of westerns. So Unforgiven's your favorite. That aside, do you have like a favorite time period?
I mean, almost for sheer volume, it's got to be the 60s. It's just, of all the decades that I watched, it was only typically like 3 or 5 movies that came out in each decade. But that decade had 10 movies. All of them were amazingly good. You have the Dollars trilogy, and you have 1969, which is probably the best Western year ever. And as well as some other incredible movies. Got to go with the 60s. But I will say I was pretty surprised with the 2000 teens.
Well, it sounds like maybe something similar was going on with the teens as the 60s, maybe, because in the 60s it was kind of like a what do you call it, like revisionist westerns?
Yeah.
Like I kind of think that's how most recent westerns are too. Like they're very aware of what they are. They're aware of the whole genre, and a lot of the more recent ones that I've seen are kind of playing off the history as well. So
yeah, definitely.
It's almost like a revision of the revision or something. But hell yeah.
All right, I got 2 questions, Shaun. First one's quick. So one or the other. Emmanuel Lubezki's in The Revenant, or Roger Deakins and the Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford?
I love how you have to say the whole title.
Oh, Jesus.
What's more beautiful?
That's actually been a conversation we've had before, just in general, like based on their careers. And I think what
those singular movies.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, real quick, for those who don't know, that's the cinematographer for both those movies. Yeah. Both of them are legendary cinematographers, and both of those are absolutely gorgeous movies.
I feel like I guess I'd give you this similar answer to what I typically give to those careers. I would say Roger Deakins is like, if you're studying cinematography, study Roger Deakins. He is a classic cinematographer that is on another level of kind of. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. It's like on another level of like classic cinematography. Whereas Emmanuel Lubezki is really exploring new ways to shoot movies, I guess. Like he's doing completely new things that have never been done before. Whereas Roger Deakins is perfect. Like he's almost a perfect cinematographer.
Yeah, but, I get that.
I guess like right now I would probably find The Revenant more interesting. So
okay.
Yeah.
I do have my main question, though. So you gave almost all these movies above 4 stars because you don't see movies below 3. However, there's one that slipped by you in a pretty big time period. I think it's Tombstone. Not only did you give it below 4 stars, unlike any of the other 30 films, but you gave it 2. So why was this on your list? Probably because critics liked it at the time, but you didn't. So why is that?
Honestly, so the way I do my lists is I just look at top 10 lists that are online, and I say if this movie has made a top 10 list, it gets 1 point. And so then I just tally up, like based on 20, 30 different top 10 lists online, what movies tended to end up on the top 10 the most.
Why is it loved so much?
This movie didn't make hardly any top 10s. It maybe made 1 or 2, but this movie I shouldn't have watched based on that criteria.
Oh, okay.
It's a movie that if you talk to anyone about Westerns who doesn't really watch movies, they'll more often than not say that this is their favorite Western.
People love Tombstone.
People love Tombstone. And
it's like the Eagles of Westerns.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Val Kilmer is amazing. And his the acting, the character, the relationship even that he has with the main character, is really good. Everything else about the movie is very bland and ridiculous and frankly bad.
Dude, Kurt Russell though, he's not bad in anything.
He's not bad. Kurt Russell is not bad. His character is very uninteresting. And also, I will admit that this is coming off of watching my favorite Western that I've seen. The movie that came out that I saw before this was Unforgiven, and frankly, I was excited for kind of an easy viewing of a Western. Like, so many Westerns are such downers and super violent, and but I was kind of excited for a light, fluffy Western movie that was just going to be fun to watch. And for me, it didn't work. It was it failed on virtually everything it was trying to do, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of how it slipped by. I just threw it on there last minute just because I was curious about it.
It's like a popcorn movie. I don't know. I feel like you got. I've actually never seen it, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But from what I've heard, it seems like it'd be like lighter, easier. Eat popcorn but
yep.
The one thing I always hear is people bring up Val Kilmer. I know you mentioned that he's great. So now that you've gone through all those, I know I haven't seen very many Westerns. Like, I've seen most of those 2010 ones that you put on there, except for The Revenant, I think. So what I know about Westerns is Clint Eastwood and John Wayne. Who do you think is the bigger Western superstar, or who do you like more from these movies you've seen?
Your first question's almost a more interesting one.
Yeah, they're different questions.
I really have to think about that.
Oh, who's the bigger?
Yeah,
superstar?
Who's the bigger Western star?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Unforgiven was your number one.
Yeah, who do I like better?
I mean, just based off your list, looks like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
like
I got to go
movies.
Clint Eastwood. Yeah, they just tended to score higher.
But also, like, someone who's been watching Westerns their whole life, like, I mean, you just watched 30 over the course of a year and watched 30 of the best ones. Like, someone who might have grown up on Westerns, like on the AMC old movie channel or whatever, like watching them with their grandfather. Like, someone might say John Wayne, right? Like, he's probably been in more Westerns than Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Shaun, when we walk downstairs at 8 a.m. and Dad's already, like, into his second Western of the morning, like, what decade, is he watching John Wayne? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So he goes back.
The Golden Age.
For example, Stagecoach came out in 1939, and I kind of, preparing for this episode, I looked back at John Wayne's career, and he probably did like 20 Westerns before Stagecoach, which Stagecoach is the movie that launched him into stardom. And he did like 20 movies before that.
Oh, damn. Right.
So
he's very prolific.
He's done
Studios churned out movies back then, though, as well.
Yeah,
so it was a little bit different time.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Nice.
Totally different time period.
Love John Wayne. He has some really good movies. He's really good in a lot of movies as well. Yeah.
Well, Shaun, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you. Like, I love that you did this, and I love that you wrapped it up with us. Like, it's like, I don't know. I love these sort of film projects. So good job, man. Congratulations on finishing it.
Yeah.
Do you have something you're doing next? Do you have another like year-long film project that you're ready to jump into, or are you kind of laying low for a bit?
Next is going to be Tarkovsky, which Brendan I think already did like last year or something.
Yeah.
Nice.
He doesn't have that many movies. But right now I realized I have like 30 movies that have been on my Netflix queue for a decade. And so I think I'm going to hit some of those. I just got Tootsie, and I'm going to do The West Side Story and what's the Civil War one?
Glory.
Gone with the Wind and Yeah. So
Classics.
I'm going to do
That's your
some of
next
those
project.
classics that have just been on my list for a while. But then, yeah, Tarkovsky's my next project.
Cool.
I'm just curious because you're the only person I know that still gets Netflix DVDs.
Uh-huh.
Is that your primary mode of watching these?
That's my
Like,
yeah.
You
That's my
usually
primary.
just load up a queue and start going through.
Yep.
It's fascinating.
Shaun, if you do Tarkovsky relatively fast, he only has like 6 or 7 movies. I still need to watch his last 2, so we could do a segment together
All right.
if you don't take too long, I guess.
Yeah,
We'll see.
definitely.
Okay, so so that was Shaun talking about his Western movies. We're going to jump into our featured reviews for the month of November. So, like I said, it's a big month. A lot of stuff happening. So, Brandon, you're going to start us off with your movie of the month.
Yep. So it's a big month, but my pick for the month, I have to give it to possibly JoJo Rabbit. This is Taika Waititi's 4th film, I believe. The IMDb synopsis is: a young boy in Hitler's army finds out his mother is hiding a Jewish girl in their home. Spoiler. But I've been a big fan of Taika Waititi since What We Do in the Shadows. That was one of my favorite comedies of the decade. It was on my top 10 list. And he hasn't disappointed since with Hunt for the Wilder People. And if you like Thor Ragnarok as well, I know Shaun did. But his career is just amazing. And he has some of my favorite humor ever. Like, we're so used to comedies being like toned down in super like realistic settings, or just like, you know, the teen comedy, the frat comedy, the adult rom-com. He kind of takes that and puts his characters in these just unbelievable circumstances and storylines, and derives his comedy from these like really different types of scripts. What We Do in the Shadows started it with like making a hilarious comedy out of this really well-made vampire movie. And he continues it just as well, if not better, with the laughs per minute that he had me going on with JoJo Rabbit. Making that your setting and the basis and the butt of most of the jokes in World War II's Nazi Germany is just such a unique and special idea. And I was totally on board from it from the get-go. It really helped that even though I went to this movie alone, I had this like, it was in the front row and I had this guy next to me that just had this like perfect, quick, but loud laugh. And it just like got me, you know how you need to like, when you watch sitcoms at home by yourself in bed, you don't really laugh the whole time. You just kind of, you're like, that's funny, and you think it in your head. I just had a blast laughing out loud with everybody in the theater at this film. And I feel like I haven't done that in a long time. Just been able to like crack up.
It's a good feeling.
So, yeah, number one, you got to people don't give props to comedies just for doing that. We always give props to movies for making us cry, but we don't give them as much props for making us have the opposite emotion. And anybody that can do that is already a genius from the get-go. So, top 10 material right there. Nice. And then this movie takes that humor and matches it up with a bunch of other pretty sentimental and sometimes rough emotions as well, as you would expect from a movie that takes place in World War II. And it worked for me. It does get sentimental, but these actors and the way the story like takes you is so cute and adorable and horrifying that it really got to me. And it did have me in tears at a couple points. I couldn't help myself. And I really enjoyed that while you kind of see where the movie is going between the girl and the boy, once that gets rolling halfway into the movie, I loved the kind of like twists and turns that it took you along the way that I thought were unexpected. And it does get in a little spoiler territory, but I just want to say that like I really appreciated the way that sentimental moment of the movie like came to a conclusion. And I thought it was just like put a unique spin on the two main characters' story and the climax. yeah, I loved this movie. It's definitely going to be in my top 10.
Yeah, I completely agree. This movie just worked for me on virtually every level. I watched the Peanut Butter Falcon recently in theaters, and there was someone in the theater with me who, at virtually every moment of the movie, they were audibly reacting to the movie exactly how the filmmaker wanted them to. Like, just gasps and laughs and just every moment. And I came home and I was kind of making fun of that person to Kelly. I just thought it was really funny. But that was me in this movie. I at every moment I felt exactly how Taika Waititi wanted me to feel. Like what you said, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you fall in love, it makes you want to cheer and dance, it makes you scream, it makes you it makes you
it gets intense
want to,
too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes you want to cover your eyes, and and I really think I agree. The sentimentality totally worked. I think because of how cute the movie was, and it's almost cute in the way that the world might seem to a child in that world. And the movie had so many beautifully set up and executed payoffs. There were several points where little bits and pieces that were scattered throughout the movie and set up earlier, and that just came together so elegantly and so beautifully and so poignantly. It was amazing. It kind of blew me away at the craft of how neatly those were set up and paid off.
That's some really good Chekhov's gun setups. And
Definitely,
in this movie.
for sure. And it in a way that like I didn't see coming, but looking back at it after the payoff happened, it was just like, how didn't I see that? It was so elegantly set up that it's almost like I should have seen it coming, but I just didn't. I didn't see any of the twists and turns that this movie took me on. So I really appreciated it for that. And, I gotta give props to all the talent in this movie. It looked really good. The color palette was, fun and quirky. The set design was great. The cinematography was beautiful. And then the performances, like from everyone across the board, Scarlett Johansson.
I don't know where you find these kid actors that are this perfect and this good at delivering well-timed humor.
Yeah, definitely. Scarlett Johansson, Rebel Wilson, Sam Rockwell, and then the child actors and the best friend, Archie Yates, who plays Yorkie, who's his best friend, and then Taika Waititi as well, who played the imaginary friend, his imaginary friend Hitler. Everyone was just top notch in this movie. I loved it.
Yeah. That's cool.
So. I guess I had one question for Brandon. Where would you like to see Taika Waititi go from here? Do you think that this shows that he can take on more serious projects?
Back to Thor,
or do you think he needs to stick with this?
Not to Thor 2. I mean, it's fine. Like, his Thor movie was fine and better than most, but it makes me sad that we get movies like Hunt for the Wilder People and JoJo Rabbit, and now we have to wait 4 more years to get through Thor 2 to get to his next masterpiece. So that makes me a little sad. But I guess he's done these like two children, like great dramedy films that are both adorable, sentimental, and hilarious. So I would like to see him step away from that and go to something adult and hilarious, and see what he can do with some more adult actors. I think that would be a good direction.
I mean, I disagree with you about Thor, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Brandon, good news. You can go back in time and watch one of his first movies, Boy, which is also. I mean, it's probably his most dramatic movie. It does have some humor in it, but it's about a father-son relationship. So it's good. It's really, really, really good.
What year? 2010.
It's really good. I'm glad you guys liked it so much. I'm definitely a lot softer on this than you guys. As we left the theater, check the phone, look on Letterboxd, and it's like, I see that my friend Luke gave this movie 2.5 stars, and I was like, that seems low. And then I saw that Shaun gave it 5 stars, and I was like, that seems high, and I just was like, I'm somewhere in the middle there. Like it was good. It was good. It was a good movie. But wasn't like blown away by it. I thought it was pretty funny, and I hear you, Brandon. Like seeing a movie in a theater where people are laughing really does like just hearing you talk about it makes me like, oh, maybe that's partly why I loved Spider-Man, the newest Spider-Man so much, because like the whole theater was laughing. Me and Cal were sitting next to it, just like laughing hysterically, and like that elevated it tremendously. I think this has been a great year for comedy, by the way. Booksmart.
Oh yeah.
The
Boys.
Long Shot. Yeah. Good Boys. Good Boys was super funny, but yeah, totally. Like seeing it, I thought the best humor bits were when they were undercutting like some of the silliness of Nazis. There's a scene where I think it was Stephen Merchant. He and a few other Nazis came to his house, and they all had to Hail Hitler each other. Like everyone, one at a time, was like Hail Hitler, Hail, and like that's a phrase with a lot of power. Like that's a pretty intense phrase throughout history. And hearing it though so many times in a row, as if it's like an obligation, as if they're just saying hello or hey yo or what's up, like just hearing Hail Hitler, Hail Hitler.
Such an old-timey, like, styled joke, too.
Yeah. It was so
like,
funny.
I don't know, out of, like, 20s stand-up, like, comedy act.
It was so funny. And, and I really liked a lot of the really absurd elements of the movie, like, when they're chasing the clones around. Like, that was really, really funny. It just, the serious stuff didn't really work as well for me. Like, I didn't think that the movie had a great balance of tones. I felt like when it did get like serious and sentimental, it veered into cliche. Like it was like, okay, I get why this needs to happen because this is what happens in movies, and you need to have this happen to progress this part because this is what happens in movies. But a lot of the other parts of the movie, like the absurdist stuff, was super original and creative, and to me it was like, okay, they're just kind of falling back on normalcy with a lot of those parts. So that didn't really work as well for me. I also kind of question whether the movie like even really cared that much about Nazi stuff, like the takedown of Nazis. Like I said, like I liked the Hail Hitler joke but there weren't that many of those, and it felt like they almost didn't really care too much about that. Like the central point of the movie, I think, was it was about a child who had this belief system. Like he wanted to be a Nazi, and he felt like Nazis were the best. He wanted to be a Nazi, and he was going to Nazi camp to train to be a Nazi, and he idolized Hitler, and but like he also believed that Jews were bat creatures that lived in caves and spit blood and all sorts of crazy absurdist stuff. But like he believed those things, and I felt like it's about a belief system that is eventually and gradually shattered, and he's forced to question how he believes, and at such a young age, I feel like that's like a pretty universal like concept that people can get behind, and you know, I just I like that part a lot of it, and I also kind of wonder that if I don't know if they could have had if they could have maybe hit that a little harder if they weren't so sentimental or something. I don't know. Like for me, a lot of the sentimental parts just couldn't have. They could have told the same story without having some of the stuff that they had in there. But
what did you end up giving it?
3.5 stars.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I for me, it's just I don't know. I guess different ways that we saw the movie. I think that all worked really well for me. I loved the progressive breakdown of his ideology, and I loved how it kind of depicted in very exaggerated comedic ways, but how it kind of depicted and made fun of how they you know, kind of brainwashed and the Hitler Youth, and how they were indoctrinated into a group, like as the movie says, like a part of a club, and yeah, I guess all that really worked for me.
So that was Taika Waititi's new film. That was JoJo Rabbit. So that should still be in theaters. And I don't know about you guys. I'm really curious if that's going to get Oscar buzz. You know, it's one of these weird movies that like could be completely ignored by the Academy, or is straight could win Best Picture. Like, I think that
We'll get a Golden Globe.
Definitely, but like
for comedy.
Yeah, if it wins Best Golden Globe for comedy, I think it has like a good chance of going all the way for Best Picture with the Academy. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird year with that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm pretty curious how it's going to work out.
Yeah, same.
Anyway, moving on.
Speaking of Oscars.
Speaking of Oscars,
this whole episode. Speaking of Oscars,
yeah, no, for real. It's that time of year. That's that type of year. So I want to bring up The Irishman. So The Irishman is Martin Scorsese's new film. It's a Netflix original movie, and it had a very limited run in certain theaters. Not the big chains like not Regal or AMC. In Seattle. It just played at the Cinerama for 1 week, and then it's playing at the Crest Theater, which is a much smaller theater. But it will be on Netflix for anyone to watch whenever on Thanksgiving. So
on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so when you listen to this episode, you could go and turn on The Irishman right away. This movie stars Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, and it's about a mafia hitman who ends up working for Jimmy Hoffa, the union leader, and it's about their relationship, and basically kind of goes over time what happened with Jimmy Hoffa and his mysterious disappearance. So it kind of follows real history, but it also kind of plays with what might or might not have happened. So real quick, I just want to talk about how Martin Scorsese is just like one of the best. Like, it's amazing. His career, like looking back on it, is frankly like unprecedented. Like, he has a masterpiece, like arguably a masterpiece in every decade since the 70s. So Taxi Driver in the 70s, Raging Bull in the 80s, Goodfellas in the 90s. I love The Departed, so I put The Departed in the 2000s.
Definitely The Departed.
And for me, The Irishman, I would say, is a late career masterpiece. And also, like, you know, he started out as basically an indie filmmaker. Like, I just watched Who's That Knocking on My Door? I think that's the one. But then like Mean Streets, both of his first few movies were very just indie, like do-it-yourself type movies that he just made on the streets of New York about gangsters and stuff. He ended up like honing his craft, but even like Raging Bull is a pretty experimental movie. I mean, it's a biopic about a boxer, but it's not told like any other biopic I've ever seen. Taxi Driver is like, it's inspired by French New Wave. Like he's always kind of taking chances with what he's doing. Some people think
that's cool to think about. You don't think of Scorsese as that anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Since The Departed, at least. But it's like he totally is and always has been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made Silence like
right.
this
decade. I was gonna bring up Silence because like Silence isn't like, you don't think back on Silence as like, oh yeah, that's one of Scorsese's best. But really, like it's a slow, personal meditation about religion, and Catholicism, and it's very near and dear to his heart. Like you can tell that he's putting a lot of his own personal beliefs and like his own questions in that movie. It's not like one of his best movies ever, but like he's saying something with that movie. And,
well, even like The Last Temptation of Christ is right down that vein. Like that was such a controversial movie when it came out, and yeah, it's a crazy movie.
Yeah, I love The Last Temptation of Christ. I try to watch that every Easter. And
yeah.
And
is that a joke?
No, me and Shaun try to watch that every Easter. We don't always get to it because it is a pretty intense movie just to turn on. It's not like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which I watch every Thanksgiving. That one's pretty easy to turn on. It's not as easy to turn on The Last Temptation of Christ. But, Willem Dafoe as Jesus, like, I don't know, you can't beat that. Can't be that shit. But yeah, I don't know. His late career stuff is like, just going off of what I was just saying about Silence. I feel like The Irishman is in a lot of ways very similar to Silence. A lot of people just looking at it on paper, it's like, okay, Scorsese's going back to the well. He's making another gangster movie with Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. This is not Goodfellas. Like, The Irishman is not that gangster movie. In a lot of ways, Goodfellas glorifies gangsters. I mean, and then they eventually have their ultimate downturn. Like, that's a story structure that happens in a lot of gangster movies where it shows how much fun they're having and they're partying and they're killing people and they're like, yeah, ever since I grew up, I always wanted to be a gangster. Just fun gangster shit. But I think a lot of The Irishman is built like a blue-collar movie. Like, Robert De Niro, he's a hitman, and it's just something he does. Like, I'm a hitman. It's like when I was in war. I just kill people, and I get paid for it. And that's what I do. And there's no glory in it. There's no fancy cars. There's no great suits that they're wearing. It's just like, he's just the hitman, and he does that shit. And it tells the story in a much slower way. I mean, so he eventually meets up with Jimmy Hoffa, and like, he's just kind of his buddy, and their relationship grows together. And man, Al Pacino is so good in this movie too. But I'm just saying, like, there's much more of a meditation here and less of a glorification. Like, it's less about the actions of these people and more about what their actions do to themselves and their relationships to other people, and how what's the point of all of it? Like, why are we doing this? And it's just like a really fascinating look at the gangster culture, and not culture, but like, gangster movies are a pillar of American cinema, and Scorsese's, he's always going to be directly connected to it. But with this film, he's taking another step, and he's going further into like the psychology and the depth of what it means to be human and what this sort of lifestyle really does to people. And it's almost
a complete
movie.
180 from Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh my gosh.
What you're saying.
Yeah, and that's honestly that's partly why
glorification to like the meditation.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't like The Wolf of Wall Street, and I mean, I've got my own personal reasons for it, but like part of that's why I didn't like it. I was like, okay, that to me was more Scorsese going back to the well, and this was like him making a statement as a 70-year-old man and looking back on his life and his career, and just American history. So yeah, I loved it. It's a long movie. It's 3.5 hours, and I feel so lucky that I was able to see it in the cinema. Like, I saw it at Cinerama, which is one of the best theaters in Seattle. I mean, it's the best theater in Seattle, but I feel like it's one of the I haven't traveled the world, but I feel like it's one of the best theaters in the world. Like the visual, the visual quality is unprecedented. The sound is amazing. The seats are super comfortable. Like, it just feels like you're going to the cinema. And this movie felt like pure cinema, like magic. I think that it'll work at home, though. Honestly, I feel like if you're gonna watch this at home, I feel like it might be just as accessible at home. I mean, its length
you can
is
pause it
as you turn your phone off.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're paying attention to the movie, I think it is a movie that you could watch in parts. You know, put it on pause and come back to it, as long as you're like really focused on it, because the movie does deserve that. So, yeah, I mean, I loved this movie. I was completely floored by it, and yeah, Scorsese's just the best. He's just so good. So, yeah, what do you guys think?
There's one aspect of this film that I thought was really interesting, and every time it happened, it like kind of gave me chills. And it's totally like seemed like a final edit type of change, but it was the text that appeared on screen every time a new character was introduced, and it just briefly stated how they died and the year of their death. And it just kind of went from like criminal to criminal, and almost all of them, you know, were dead within the next decade of you seeing them in this film. And I thought that was really, really powerful to see. And yeah, it honestly like kind of gave me chills over and over again every time I saw it. It just like hit hard and felt so real, that the stakes that these characters are in is probably going to end all of their lives very soon. And that I think that played into the like conclusion of the movie and the theme of the movie of death and what our lives are for, and why and what we do when we're here. And I thought that was a really good way to like set that throughout the movie with introducing every character.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I agree. It was also kind of a funny bit too when they would do that. Like, it was kind of like, because it was unexpected. Like, like it'd be just a guy talking, and then it'd be like, oh, he got shot 4 times in the face in his front yard. And
yeah,
it's
they were
like,
all gruesome and rough, and
well,
I'm
that's what
assuming it
happens
was
to
real,
that guy.
like it was from actual history, but who knows?
Yeah.
Is there like a lot of them?
There's probably 10.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
the thing that it is pretty interesting with this movie, because it's based on a book called I Hear You Paint Houses, which is like mafia code for I Hear You Kill People. And
Such a good title.
Oh my gosh.
Damn it.
I know. I wish they had kept it.
I wish that was the name of this movie.
Yeah, it's a really good title. But so apparently, this real life guy that Robert De Niro plays, Frank, he like confessed that he is the guy who killed Jimmy Hoffa, and Jimmy Hoffa went missing. This is like true American stuff. He went missing, and people assume that something happened with the mafia, but there's all sorts of legends of how it could have happened or what happened, or I mean, anything could have happened. They never found his body. No one knows at all what happened. And Jimmy Hoffa was like a superstar back in the 60s and 70s. So it was a huge deal. He just went missing. But apparently this guy Frank confessed, and that's what the book is about. But also, like, some people don't really believe that that's truly what happened. Like, that, like, he could have been put up to confessing, or some other different people might have been involved. Like, it is like, this movie is based on this book, but it's not necessarily 100% fact. But I think you're right. Like, I think all those people that they were mentioning were real people in history, and probably what really happened to them.
I'm curious how did the de-aging effects work for you guys? So I haven't heard anyone mention this in any of the reviews or anything, so I'm guessing it's not super noticeable, but for me it's really noticeable in the trailers at least. I'm just curious if they cleaned it up a bit, or what do you guys think?
It was okay.
I thought it was fine.
It was definitely noticeable and obvious. But I did forget about it fairly quickly. I just kind of looked past it, I guess. Maybe just because the movie's, how good the movie is. That didn't play a big role in my enjoyment. But, yeah.
The only thing that took me out of the movie was his blue eyes. Like, for whatever reason, they gave Robert De Niro blue eyes, and they were really blue. And he doesn't have blue eyes in real life. At least I don't think he does. But that was the only part that was like, oh, like, that doesn't look real. But everything else for me, like, didn't take me out of the movie at all. Like, I didn't mind the de-aging. Like,
I was kind of confused on how young he was supposed to be. Like, they kept calling him, like, kid and newbie, and I was like, is he supposed to be in his 20s? And, I mean, he, even with the de-aging, he still looked like in his upper 40s.
Right.
I do
so it was
think,
a little confusing.
Yeah, I think maybe part of that was in Robert De Niro's posturing and his movement, because like his face
stiff.
looked pretty young, but he's still, he's an old guy, and so he kind of postures and moves around like an old guy. So I wonder if that was kind of the weird part that didn't really work.
I was watching Scorsese on one of those late night shows. It was like Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he told this story about Al Pacino. And there's a scene in the movie where Al Pacino is he's watching TV and they're electing JFK. He's like winning the election, and he gets up and he storms off. He's supposed to be pissed off. He's like, I didn't want to. And he storms off, and like, his acting is great. And he walks across the room, and Scorsese's like, brilliant. And the cinematographer apparently came over and was like, he's supposed to be 40, and Scorsese or Pacino's like 75 when he like film, like, he's 75, and they're like apparently he just looked like a 75-year-old, and so like Scorsese was like, oh no, okay, someone's got to tell him that he needs to act like he's 40, and they told him, and he was like, oh yeah, okay, you're right, and then they did it again, and he didn't look 40, but he was like, okay, that was 60, like, meet halfway, that's 60, and so yeah, that must be weird. That must be weird for an actor who's that old to not even in their, like, just in their body. Like, you have to, like, really go against what your body is doing.
Really fight those aches and pains.
Like a grumpy old guy is just like, what are these kids playing a 40-year-old? I'm 75. Come on. What are you talking about?
I gotta echo everything you guys said. I loved this movie. Nick, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, everything you said, that was a really great kind of persuasive statement about this movie. One thing I really want to point out is how extremely entertaining this movie was, or that I found this movie to be. I was completely riveted to its characters and to the relationships in the movie, and it didn't feel like a 3.5 hour movie. It had really good pacing. Every scene was interesting enough to really hold you in your seat, and and it's just like it shows how incredible of a filmmaker Martin Scorsese is to be able to make a 3.5 hour movie that is almost exclusively dialogue driven, that entertaining, about old guys talking about stuff. It was just really impressive.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I had to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm sorry, but like I go to the bathroom during the movies. Like, if I drink any liquid 3 hours before a movie, then I'm probably gonna have to go during any movie. And so, I mean, this movie's 3.5 hours long. I had to go pee. And you're right, Shaun. Like, the movie moves, and there's something that's always happening in it, even if it's a character sitting by himself thinking. it's riveting, and you don't want to miss it. And so like
just him choosing the gun.
Yeah,
that scene, it's just him and his inner monologue, and it's just so fun. Good, so entertaining.
The movie can get like really fun at times like that when he's like narrating, and the guy with the like big ears in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And I loved how Martin Scorsese can do these like quick, like these really quick 2-second B-roll scenes that like flashes on the screen to like go over a moment. And at the same time, the next scene can be this like long 20-minute, like intense buildup of just dialogue that these characters are going through. Like that great scene at the party, maybe in the last third of the movie, when they're just going from person to person, trying to figure out, I guess spoilers, but at the big celebration, it's kind of like the final negotiations that they're going through to try to save his life.
And like the restaurant scene, the build up to that, and the execution of that scene, where the assassination scene in the restaurant.
Yep.
That is, single take, it's Martin Scorsese. He's the best director, one of the best directors of all time. And there's so many instances in this movie where that shows.
He does blood and violence so well in this film, and it's actually really not that often used in the 3.5 hours. Like, there's not too much like on-screen killing. Maybe I'm wrong. But when it does happen, it's just like super brutal, and the blood effects are like in your face, and it just makes you like cringe and jump, and then he moves on.
Yeah.
And he's just so good at that.
It just happens, and
it just happens,
and then it's over. And I loved how the movie puts you in the context of history. Like so I didn't really know anything about Jimmy Hoffa. I didn't know anything about any of these characters from this movie, or what ended up happening. But I really appreciated how it puts you in the context of the time. Like, from, talking about Bobby Kennedy, and like bringing him into this narrative, and then the Bay of Pigs stuff that this movie talked about, and then the JFK assassination. And I loved how it really gave this movie a time and a place. That's another thing that Martin Scorsese is really good at doing, is making a movie have a time and a place.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about this movie. Like, it's one of those movies where there's so many layers. Like, you walk out of the theater and you're like, where do you even begin with it? Like, there's just so much content and so many things to unpack. But we need to move on. So
totally agree, Shaun.
So that's The Irishman. It's on Netflix, and I highly recommend it for everybody. So Derek, you're going to talk about our final movie of the day.
Yes. The movie I picked was Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, the winner of the Cannes Palme d'Or award this year. Which is kind of like the big movie thing, the big award outside of the Oscars. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably give it more weight than like Best Picture and stuff, right?
Well, the Academy is so political. It's like most movie people I would say don't agree that the Best Picture really is the Best Picture. Like Green Book won last year, and I think it was the
winner of Cannes is likely going to be better than the winner of the Oscars.
Yeah, right. It's like the big international holy crap movie.
Right. Well, this movie's really cool because I think we've all been fans of Bong Joon-ho for a long time. and I've never pictured him being like in that. As much as I love his movies, they feel more blockbustery to me, and so it's really cool that he was able to find like a way to make a Bong Joon-ho movie that would also like land him that award. It's just really cool to me. Films. Right, yeah. But he's very much like, I don't know, for me, he's like traveling in that like Nolan path where he's making movies that are very specific to him and like what he likes to do, but they're also just like so accessible and so like, they're usually just big. They feel big, at least to me. I don't know, Snowpiercer and Okja and The Host, they all feel like big blockbustery movies, even though they're not really blockbusters, I guess, in the traditional sense. But this movie, I think, fits right in his canon of movies that he's made too. And I actually think this is probably his easiest to just sit down and watch, because just like all those, it's just, God, this guy knows how to make a fun, entertaining movie from the first second of every film he makes. And what I really love about this one and all his movies is he's really got something to say about the desperation and like the gap between the lower class and the higher class people. All of his movies in some way incorporate that theme, and I think he really has something deep down that he just really wants to bring that disparity to light more, or at least just explore that concept a lot in his movies. And so this movie definitely does that.
I don't know why I haven't thought of that, but to the extreme, right. All his last three movies have.
Yeah, like Snowpiercer's like as extreme as you can possibly get with it.
Yeah,
and yeah, every movie does mostly taps into that, but also his ability to like with it. It's been a long time since I've seen The Host, so it's hard for me I couldn't like lay out the plot. But as far as his other three go that I've seen more recently, Snowpiercer, Okja, and Parasite, he's really good at easing you into this world that he's created and like kind of guiding you through it so quickly and so effortlessly. And he like paints it out for you. And just like with a lot of movies, when you're watching him, usually you kind of are catching on to like the themes and everything and where they're going. And he's so good at just like making sure you get to that point and then like doing a twist, I think is what they call it, right? In writing, you do a twist. But it's like his are just so, they're usually like a gut-wrenching like direction that you wouldn't have ever expected it to go. And it's just he's just so good at that. And like all three of those movies, all like maybe not as much Snowpiercer, but especially Okja and this movie, both like they just have such good like, I don't know, his balance of jumping between those is just so well done, and his ability to like jump between almost like genres, like his like his tones.
Yeah,
like you can in Parasite, you're following this family that's really down on their luck and they don't have a lot of money and stuff, but he's able to find the humor in that in such weird ways that are like so accessible and just so fun. I don't know. He's so good at bouncing between like David Fincher type of movie, like a dark, moody thriller, and straight into comedy at any given moment at the same time.
You were saying the word twist. I think a way I see it as he like this and Okja, both these last two films,
yeah.
He has like three different films inside one film. And when it moves between it's like less of a twist and more just like, this is now what you're going to be watching for the next 45 minutes.
I do think
it's just a whole new thing.
I do think there is a twist in this movie, which we can talk about in spoilers, but he it's almost like effortless how they'll just go from funny to dramatic to horrifying back to funny. Like it's like
Yeah.
he's so, it's just effortless.
Yeah, you don't realize until they're making jokes that 10 seconds ago your heart was like beating out of your chest. It was so intense.
Right.
You know, and then it's like immediately back into like humor and you're like, oh, good God. And it's like, it doesn't feel, it's not a jarring experience at all. It's like, it feels natural. Somehow he's just mastered that, jumping that bridge between the two. But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved this movie so much. It just felt like a classic. I don't know. I just got done watching it. It was like, man, that just hit on like every level for me. And yeah, I mean again, I'm sorry, I don't even know where to begin with this movie. Like, I mean, you've already been talking about, but like, I just wanted to echo what you said about the gap that they had between, like, I think this movie was so much about the wage gap between the rich and the poor. You know, it's about this family who basically they infiltrate this rich family. Each one of them pretends that they're someone else, and they get a job in the house as the driver or the clean lady or the tutor, and they infiltrate them. But one thing that I thought was pretty interesting was that they didn't really condemn either side, or I guess they kind of condemned, but they all, like, neither side was purely good or purely bad. You know, it wasn't like, oh, these are the heroes for infiltrating them, and you know, you like these people because they're likable people and they're very human, so you sympathize with them, and they're desperate, and you know, you sympathize with them. But they also they're also just like kind of, I mean, it's called Parasite for a reason. They're just kind of leeching off.
Kind of nasty.
Yeah, they're just kind of leeching off this family. But then the family, you know, like a lot of people, you'll hear like kill the rich. You know, that's like a thing with a lot of movies this year. And I would say this movie isn't really like, yeah, fuck those rich people type thing. Like, I would say this movie, if anything, like, it kind of shows that they're human too, and they have their own things going on. They have their own struggles. They have their own like lives that they're getting through. And I feel like the movie kind of lets you like both of them and also dislike both of them. And it just plays that balance really, really well. There are a few scenes that really like that strike me with that. Like there's a running theme where the father in the Park family, the family that infiltrates them, he has a smell about him, and they cover their nose sometimes. And the rich family, they sometimes they do it on purpose. Like they keep him in their place, like you know, that's the help, you know, like they keep them over there. But other times they're welcoming and they're friendly, but then they do things like cover their nose without even like realizing it. There's this very striking scene where the father's driving, you know, he's the driver, he's driving them, and the mom in the back seat has her feet up on the chair in front of her and her shoes are off, and it's kind of a rude thing to do. You know, you got your bare feet in someone else's face. And then she notices the smell that Park has, and she covers her nose. It's just like, you know, the dynamics right there. And
Right.
gosh, it's just such a good movie. It's such a
So
good
detailed.
movie. Yeah, it's so good.
I think a big thing about his directing and with all his movies is they just move forward so well and so entertainingly. Like, the pace of this movie is absolutely flawless from beginning to end, as you're slowly realizing what is unfolding, what it's even about. Just wanted to do, like, I went into this movie super blind, and I think it paid off extremely well. Like, this movie particularly.
I had no idea what this movie was about. Like, when I sat down to see this theater, I hadn't seen I didn't see a trailer. Sat down, and like, I was with a couple friends, and we were like, all three of us were completely blind, and we were like, this could be a horror movie. This could be like a sad, like, crying all night movie. This could be literally anything. And like, yeah, like, it kind of was like
100%. I watched the trailer after, and Yeah, fuck that trailer. Like, please do not watch it if you haven't seen this movie yet. It gives away the main change that happens partway through this film.
Okay, yeah, because
it's really unfortunate.
Because like for a little bit in the movie, I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. Like, it's gonna have this like sitcom sort of like payoff. Okay, and then it doesn't go there. Like, it doesn't. It goes in another direction, which we can talk about in spoilers because we're going to do a spoiler section for this movie. What's
crazy about that though too is like that the big first chunk of like the first third to first half of the movie, like that concept that they lay out and like set up has like a lot of stakes, and like you can see the whole movie. Like there is a full interesting movie without all the other stuff right there already.
Right.
But then he just doubles down and like, we're going this way.
Yeah.
A normal movie would have made that the full 2 hours.
Right.
But he didn't need to.
Should we go into spoilers? I mean, we're like awfully close right now, so
we should get Sean's initial impression.
Sean, do you want your initial impression, or do you want to jump right into spoilers?
Yeah, I'll just real quick say, I guess just echo. Yeah, this movie's a ton of fun. It's broken up into 3 really interesting parts. I really loved the execution of the con elements of the early film. And like all the setup for that and how they were kind of playing the family. So a ton of twists and turns. It's really unexpected and really good.
Okay, so I'm sorry. All right, so should we go into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so at this point on, we're going to be talking about spoilers. So spoiler warning, if you haven't seen Parasite, stop listening to our episode and go see Parasite. So spoiler warning from here on out. Spoilers. Yeah. So real quick, I want to talk about the house. Okay, so the house that they go into, that the rich family lives in, is fucking gorgeous. It's like a beautiful piece of architecture. Like, it has this it has all these like nooks and crannies in it, these epic staircases, and then it has like this big wide open living room that looks out. There's just panes of glass, and you look out into this gorgeous yard that's just like a peaceful haven. Like, it's a beautiful house. And the twist that we keep talking about, like, they're all hanging out in the living room. The family's on vacation, so the Park family's all hanging out. And then, I mean, I can't remember exactly what happens, but a door opens, a closet door.
The nanny comes home.
Oh, the old nanny comes home.
The old nanny comes back.
The nanny that got fired comes back, and she opens a hidden door, and there's this secret staircase, and the camera follows them down the staircase, and her husband, her husband is living
Lost Hatch territory.
Oh my god! It was just like Lost in the Hatch. It was just like that. It was like, what? Where?
This is what this fucking movie is doing. Oh my god!
Mind blown. Like, blown. Holy crap!
They take it like so. God, it's just so brilliant how they do it too. Like, they don't just it's not a crazy concept. Like, it's not. But they make sure you're still weirded out by it. But like, the first thing you see is like she's like feeding her husband a bottle of milk, like with a nipple on it and everything weird like that. You're just like, what the fuck is happening down here?
Yeah.
that's he's like malnourished. He's not just hanging out talking.
Well, it's been weeks of him since she'd been fired, and also I don't know if you guys noticed, but she was acting herself. Like, when they had her earlier in the movie, she was like very like uppity and like moving in a very specific sort of nanny way. And then when she came back to the house, she was a different person. Like, she that whole act, that whole facade was gone, and she was like desperately like moving around, and she had like a different voice on it and stuff. It was like
yeah, for sure, absolutely. She was kind of pretending to be like an
perfect.
Yeah. But once she's down in that cellar, she's just like pure desperation, and like, it gave me chills just thinking about it.
I guess I want to bring up just the incredible crescendo, and it's not even the climax of the movie. It's like the second to the last peak that happens maybe at like 70% way into the film, of them sneaking out of the house in the rain, and their apartment flooding. This is kind of the culmination of the Hatch segment of the movie.
Well,
and all those intercutting, like, between the different locations and what's going on with the characters, and them just like swimming through filth and trying to save what they have. Like, my heart was pounding, and I was just like gasping at how well he was just playing, how well the director was just like playing with these characters in the scene. Like, it was so brilliantly stitched together.
Well, that's really the perfect example of what we've been talking about, how he balances tones. Because, like, the scene, first, it's like a dramatic scene, but it's also kind of funny, where they're getting drunk in the living room, goofing around, but they're also, like, kind of talking about serious stuff, how they need to look after each other. And then there's the, like, scary scene, where they open the hatch and they go down, and that's a very thrilling moment. And then it again switches where the Park family's coming home and they all like scramble,
fighting the cell phone.
They're fighting, they're arguing. It's intense. It's thrilling, and
it's a 45-minute like build up.
Yeah,
like that scene. I guess, like, I'm doing air quotes. That scene is so long, and it takes so long to climax. It's incredible.
That is the second act of the movie. Is just like that one long kind of real time from them hanging out in the living room all the way through to when they
to the flood.
Leave.
Well, so then they end up, all four of them are like hiding under the couch, because the boy, the young child in the film, he wants to sleep outside. It's his birthday. He wants to sleep outside in the tent, and so he goes outside and he's sleeping in the tent. And the mom and dad are laying on the couch, like watching him. But then they start like having sex, and it's like it's kind of funny. I mean, it's like thrilling, but it's also like kind of funny, because it's like they're saying stuff that you would never hear them say in public. Like they're talking dirty. They're like it's them like with their facades off, like being like intimate and real, but also like weird. And it's like it's a funny scene. And then they all sneak out. They crawl out like cockroaches, and it's like it's like sad, but it's also kind of funny. But then they go back to their apartment, their basement apartment, and the whole thing's flooded. Like there's literally shit everywhere. Literally shit is flying out of the toilet. Yeah, and it's like
the guy's smashing his bloody forehead against the button.
Like it's
trying to flick the lights to be seen.
And it's so heartbreaking. It's so sad. It's tremendously like just miserable.
And then the next day, the wife is talking on the phone, trying to throw a party, and like, no care in the world, like this storm.
Totally oblivious.
Nothing happened.
Totally oblivious that anything happened to anyone lower class than her. You know, like no idea that lower part of the city flooded. Like,
God. Ruined people's lives that night.
And not just that family. You know, not just that family. Like other people too. Like
the street and everyone.
But yeah.
And then the movie, it just has all these intricacies. Like, Brandon, you're talking about the guy, like, with the buttons in the hallway. Like, that's like there's a whole backstory to that. And, like, how quickly he was able to explain, like, why those buttons are there, why the lights, like, function the way they do, why the rich families never questioned it. And, like... And that guy's like whole warped mind from being trapped down there for so long, and like there's so
a whole
much complexity to that.
There's a whole movie about that guy living down there for years. Like there's a whole movie about him losing his mind, but like being obsessed with pressing the buttons and turning the lights on when they're supposed to turn on. Like that. There's a whole movie about that. And then also, like another horror element, like the little boy that was in the tent that we just mentioned, he had seen a ghost. Like they mentioned it earlier in the movie.
Oh my god!
Yeah, they had mentioned it way earlier.
Best payoffs.
Oh my god!
That's
like
one of the best payoffs.
Fucking so good. Like they mentioned that he had seen a ghost, and then they give you the flashback after you meet the guy who's living in the basement. He had seen that guy like sneak out in the middle of the night, and it's fucking scary.
That's so freaking scary.
It's so scary. That's a nightmare.
I loved the moment of brutality in the actual climax of the son going back into the cellar.
Oh, geez, yeah.
You know, and trying to and like thinking the maid is dead, and then he gets hooked around the neck.
Oh, yeah.
And that culminating to like his face getting smashed in at the top of the stairwell with the rock. Like,
yeah, what was the deal with that rock? The rock is the rock that his friend gave him in the beginning.
It represented like success, or like something about success and money coming in, or like wealth or something. And so then when shit went down for them, where shit hit the
like
fan,
a good
shit
luck
was flying in the toilet. I think he either got obsessed with it, and he was kind of like was mentally unstable and was carrying it around because he was like lost, and that was just a comforting like symbol to him. Or maybe the Rock did have supernatural powers, and it was attached to him, like the Log Lady or something. But
no, I think it is kind of what you're talking about, because his friend went to America, right? His friend went to college in the States and gave him that rock at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And I think this is a thing with Bong Joon-ho too. He has a thing with America and Americans, and just a weird relationship with it. I think that definitely had meaning. That rock for sure had a sort of metatextual meaning.
Wasn't the rock supposed
representing-
to bring you good fortune in with money or something? Was that?
Did he
is that
actually
what he
say
said?
that, his friend?
It was something like that. I'm
He might
struggling
have.
to remember, but he said something about good luck or good fortune.
Yeah.
yeah, it's supposed to bring them wealth. I think like it was supposed to bring them success and wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had a lot of. I remember that American thing, because he's had a lot. All of his movies kind of tie into this. But this movie specifically had a bunch of references to like building quality of like toys and stuff like that. She's like, "Well, I ordered it from America, so it's
So it's good.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
yeah."
That's kind of his thing, you're saying?
Yeah, I just read like an interview with him. He has just complex emotions with America.
Yeah, the host was certainly like that.
Yeah, the host,
definitely
host
the
was, like,
opening of
big
the host with the American.
Yeah.
That's based on a real incident, I guess. That's what I was reading.
Oh, really?
About it. Yeah. But
we need to, as a collective lover of this director, need to go back and watch Mother and Memories of Murder.
yes,
I watched Memories
totally
of Murder.
agree.
I've seen Memories of Murder.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. I watched it like
it
fairly
is?
recently, like 2 months ago.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think I watched it.
I'm
Just heard
definitely gonna
such good
watch it.
things about both those.
No, it's good. It's more it's probably his most straightforward movie, but that I've seen. But it's very much like a gritty crime movie, and like it's about the process, like similar to kind of like Zodiac, I guess. Like not in that not in that you don't know who, but just like the way they give you ample time and watch you put the case together piece by piece by piece and obsessively try to figure out who's doing it. It's a good movie.
He's totally got a David Fincher vibe to his movies. I feel like there's got to be some inspiration there.
Yeah.
Well, then Mother. It's
And
his
like
most,
even
nearly his most critically acclaimed film. So we're all on the hook to see Mother very soon.
more
guys.
critically acclaimed than Parasite.
Well,
I think. No.
so on
Can't
Not on
imagine,
Letterboxd.
right?
so on Letterboxd, Parasite just became, and we all know this, but Parasite just became the highest rated movie of all time.
all time.
It just
It's
passed
still-
The Godfather as the
that's
number
freaking
one.
crazy.
It's
I think-
still in latest news on the front page.
yeah.
It's been there
I mean,
for
And
weeks.
that is a
It's-
thing about just the time. Like modern movies
Yeah.
are going to be rated higher and have more people look at them.
Well, and the
so.
thing too is that like so many more people have seen The Godfather and rated it, so you're gonna have more people like putting like that movie's overrated type thing. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. But like if as many people had seen Parasite as The Godfather, it probably wouldn't be the highest rated movie of all time. But it is saying something that it is that right now. Like that's how much people, at least on Letterboxd, are loving this movie.
It seems pretty universally. I mean, yeah, the Metascore is 96%, 8.6% on IMDb. It seems
streaming on
pretty.
Netflix.
I think
It's streaming on Netflix?
Oh, Mother. Sorry.
Oh.
Is it really? Mother's on Netflix?
Unless it's grabbing the other Mother film with an exclamation mark data.
Oh, wow. Well, that's awesome.
Anyways.
I'm watching
Anyways,
tonight.
it's freaking great. This guy is like very quickly becoming one of my favorite directors working today for sure. Like, I saw Okja after this one Palme d'Or. I was like, oh shit! Like, all right, this guy's for real. I got to go back and watch Okja, which I'd been wanting to watch for a long time. And I don't know if you guys have looked on my profile and Letterboxd. It's in my top 4, like, movies. That movie just fucking was a game changer for me. I don't know what it is about that movie. I can't wait to watch it again, but and this movie feels like it's like right up there too. This is way easier for anyone to just go watch, I think. Okja's really out there and weird, but and I
This
think
is his moment too.
Yeah,
like,
this
all
is
eyes
like
are gonna
his
be on him.
breakout. This is like the big like
What
this
he
one's
does after this will be kind of everything.
This
because
one's
everyone
much-
will be watching finally.
This one's less of a genre movie. You know, like the other, I feel like almost all of his other movies that I've seen at least are pure genre movies. And I feel like this one is like, this is a drama. You know, this is just like a straight up drama. And I do kind of wonder if it's like picking up as much steam like in the box office. Like, I don't know if people like really know about this movie as much, you know, like other than like, you know, movie people. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know how it's going to do at the Academy Awards, because I don't know if
It'll win Best Foreign Film.
Ooh, it's made on some.
but like
This
will
is
it
winning
be
Best Foreign Film.
nominated for Best Picture? You
I
know?
think so.
Right. But like, I don't know if it's I just don't know if it's like picked up
I mean, I
enough
don't
steam.
know either.
It's almost hit $100 million over here.
Really?
What?
Yeah,
Well,
in the box
Seriously?
office.
that's
I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
yeah.
It just seemed
I don't
like
think
last
that's
year
right.
with Roma,
That's-
Or
like,
that was just what Google said. You let me go to its box
Yeah,
office.
no,
sure
it's
it's not 100 million
100
worldwide,
It's
because-
114
Oh, it's 100 million
worldwide.
worldwide. You're right.
okay.
It's made 16 million domestic.
Yeah.
I really hope, though, that with the Academy Awards, it gets a wider release. And I mean, it's a fairly wide release. I guess it was in AMC's and everything, but
That's true. It might get one of those like February mini releases as well.
yeah. Or even just like leading up, if it gets some buzz for the Academy Awards, it might. Like a lot of movies do that. They release early, and then there's like buzz throughout December and January, kind of leading up to the Academy Awards, and like
Comes out again.
like not Lady in the Water, The Shape of Water.
Oh.
Like that kind of movie had a very slow build up to its success. So I would love to see something like that for Parasite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
So go see it.
I mean, the thing about the Academy Awards too is that it's like so much of it is about the campaign, and like last year with Roma, like Netflix was all about that campaign, but I don't know if whatever studio has Parasite is like wanting that as much, you know, but
Right.
That's kind of funny. I just went on a date with this guy who did the marketing for Parasite yesterday.
What?
You know,
What
Yeah.
did he say? Did he say it's gonna?
it's the most he said is the best movie he's ever worked with, and he's seen it like 3 times now. But I didn't talk to him about the Oscars. I should have, because this will be totally his department.
I saw
So
an
you got to
interview.
go on a second date with him, Brandon. Just to get the
can we get him on the podcast?
get the goods.
I saw an interview
see.
with Bong Joon-ho about him and the lead actor in this movie. I don't have his name handy, but he's in all of his movies. They're both a part of the Academy, and they're like, "Can we vote for ourselves?" They're like, "Yeah, I think you can." They're like, "Oh yeah." They're all excited about Best
Derek,
Picture.
speaking of which, let's take this back to the beginning. I forgot. I totally forgot to add a Western, which is The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, starring that father actor in this movie, Kang Ho Song.
Song Kang Ho. I was gonna say like we
Song
need
Kang
it.
Ho.
We need to go back a couple sentences and say his name if we're not.
Yeah,
Like
Kang Song.
He's the main character.
Kang Ho
He's
Song
amazing
Kang-ho.
too. He's in every one of this guy's movies. I think.
Yeah.
Was he in Okja? He might not have been in Okja, but he's really, really great.
Yeah, he's in Memories of a Murder too.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right,
so I think that kind of wraps it up, though, guys. We've been talking for a bit here, so I think we should wrap it up. As much as, again, Parasite's one of those movies where I feel like we could do a whole episode about Parasite, and it would have been fun. But yeah, we should wrap it up though, and real quick, let's go around in a circle and say what we're excited about for next month. Derek, what do you got going on?
I'm really excited about Knives Out, which it's kind of falls in a weird spot on the holidays here. So I got to see it this weekend, but it didn't come out till tonight, I think, when we're recording this right now, technically. So I'm sure we'll end up talking about it next month.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yes.
Oh.
It's. I'm excited for
So
you guys to see it. I'm
waited
excited
for us to talk about it. Love it.
Oh, Derek.
But December movie I'm excited about is Little Women. I saw the trailer for it during Knives Out, and the movie it looks like a blast. It looks. We all saw Greta Gerwig. It's directed by Greta Gerwig. We all saw her last movie, Lady Bird. We all loved it, and this looks like it's getting a lot of buzz, and it's kind of following that same trend. It looks really great. Excited about that.
Shaun?
I'm really excited for 1917, Sam Mendes's next movie. It's a World War One kind of epic. Looks really good.
Yeah. That movie's supposed to be just one shot.
One take. I just read that today.
Yeah.
With CGI, not fully one take like Victoria,
Right.
but two movies I'm looking forward to is Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, which is legit supposed to be like one of the best films of the year and his best film he's ever made. I'm a huge fan of that director. I'm so excited. It's getting crazy reviews. It's in the AV Club's high in the AV Club's top 100 of the decade.
That's another Netflix movie, so that'll be on Netflix like early December.
Next week. Uncut Gems is also supposed to be the absolute best of the year material. It was on AV Club's top 100 of the decade. This is by the director who did Good Times a few years ago, which was an outstanding, gritty, dark New York movie. And this is Adam Sandler's kind of comeback drama that's supposed to be brilliant. So I'm so excited.
Every 8 to 10 years, Adam Sandler does a drama, and it's always amazing. But they're few and far between. But each one of them is like, oh man, this is just great. Why don't you do this all the time? And then he goes back to the farty movies. I second all those. I'm really excited about all of those. I'm really looking forward to Honey Boy as well. It's the movie about Shia LaBeouf's childhood, and he plays his own father. And I don't know, Shia LaBeouf's legit, so I'm really excited about that. And also Terrence Malick's new movie. I don't know if that's coming out in December or January. I feel like it might be one of those that might be in New York and LA in December, and then the rest of the country in January. But it's called A Hidden Life, and based on what I've heard and what the trailers look like, it looks like it's Terrence Malick back to form. His last few movies have been hit or miss. I liked Song to Song. I thought that was a pretty sexy movie, but Night of Cups I thought was pretty bad. So, but yeah, I think this one, A Hidden Life, looks really, really good.
Yeah. This is another World War II movie. Nazi.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
I need to say this, guys, because it's brilliant. But I just saw this film last night that I won't get a chance to talk about because it's so small. A Long Day's Journey into the Night. I guarantee next month this will be on all the lists. This movie was beyond brilliant. It's a Chinese foreign film. The last 58 minutes of it is one take. It's very long, 2.5 hours, but it is one of the most jaw-droppingly gorgeous films I have seen in years. And you guys need to all add it to your list and see it immediately.
What's it called?
It's called Long Day's Journey into the Night. And I think in the next few weeks when the lists are coming out, we're going to hear a lot about this movie.
Okay. Cool. A long day's journey into the night. You pulled a Shaun. I mean, I guess it's not Shaun since he only did it once, but you snuck a review in there. You got me.
Yeah.
So that's A Long Day's Journey into the Night, and that was the Monthly Movie Dispatch. So thank you for listening, and go watch some movies. It's that time of year. Go do that shit. Get on the AMC Stubs A-list, or go down to your local indie theater. Let's go. Hell yeah.
Go get it.
See you next month.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.